So that's great. Welcome, all of you. So as we did before, just maybe quick intro from each of you. I think most of the audience will know who you are anyway, but let's assume not. So Claudine, name and where are you from?
So for those of you that don't know, I'm Claudine Bell. I work for Virgin Media O2.
Hi everybody, Tim Atkinson. I work at Google. I'm a business development manager there, looking after RCS in various regions across Europe.
Hi everyone, I'm James Gwillim. I work at Twillio on the SMS and wholesale trading side of the business.
Hey guys, this is Barinderpal Mumick. I'm the VP Biz Dev and Operations at Dotgo. I myself and my team runs the RCS operations globally for the company. Happy to be here.
Great, thank you very much, guys. So maybe, James, you mentioned part of your role is SMS, and I think there is an argument that there's an evolution here from SMS to RCS. So let's maybe just start with that. So where, in your opinion, does SMS still hold value? And just maybe talk to us about that kind of evolution as you see it.
Certainly. I mean, well, there's definitely an evolution, as you put it, but I would argue that SMS still holds an incredible value globally, and that's simply because there still isn't an alternative channel that's ubiquitous across all devices, all networks, that doesn't have any issue with smartphone penetration or mobile data access. And obviously we can see that trend is changing. There is more competition, let's say, from the alternatives, but until the competition can provide that full coverage, I think SMS is still going to maintain a big value in the market.
Fantastic. Has anybody got any views on that, just to add?
Yeah, I think, like I said, earlier, people today don't even realize they're using RCS. Like if you look at it, all P2P communication that's happening over an Android device is happening over RCS. All P2P communication that's happening between an Apple and an Android device is now happening on RCS and iMessage. So without people knowing it, they're using RCS. The only places where SMS is left is literally as a fallback channel. And in markets like I think James pointed out earlier today regarding a use case in Africa, in Kenya, regarding farmers where the data is an issue. So SMS is slowly becoming really a fallback channel. And more and more, that's going to be the case. I would expect that in maybe in a few years, in say 3 years, the A2P SMS coverage, A2P RCS is going to basically cross over the A2P SMS coverage in about 3 years. And say in 5 years, it's most likely going to double over the A2P SMS coverage, the A2P RCS usage. So SMS is there. And it's going to be there always. It's always going to have a value, but it's more as a fallback channel when there is a data connectivity issue, when there is, or in markets where there is no smartphones. But even today, most of the communication is happening on RCS. Apple to Apple happens on iMessage. Apple to Android happens on RCS. Android to Android happens on RCS. So without people really realizing it, it's all RCS. And in 3 to 5 years, you can see it cross over and double.
So, Tim, if I can come to you just on that note, what, in your experience, I mean, excuse me, we're a year on from when we were talking about this last time, where a lot of the conversation was about kind of getting things going. But what are you seeing in terms of the shift to our RCS from SMS? What's driving enterprise to do that?
It's really about better engagement. So enterprises want to have better engagement and value from messaging. So messaging has become, a very, very, very big thing. I bet you everybody in this room sent a message today, at least once, right? And how many people made a phone call? Probably not that many. It's just everybody's lives. Meta have done a massive job about pushing the messaging narrative for a number of years now. They're getting very aggressive in the channel. But from a brand perspective, they're learning that, hey, I can reduce my costs, increase my business efficiency, delight my customers, and get better outcomes by using messaging. So they are looking for ways to do that, and they're presented with several options. Obviously, email is a very rich channel, but email is full of, unfortunately, spam, and it doesn't get read. But of course, on a personal device, it's in your pocket. You can send someone a message. It'll get delivered either as a fallback to SMS, as Barinderpal was saying, or it'll be delivered as a rich message. And if you can get something which is appealing, which is verified, and is showing the customers the brand there, you're going to get a lot more value from that. And I think we've talked about this numerous occasions now, but that is what's happening. There are still a number of brands that will say, and a lot of businesses that will say, well, I just want to have the cheapest option to get a message across. And I think that's where SMS does actually serve quite a good value. If they just want to send something that's simple, they've got a short code that they're using and it's delivering, then yeah, fine. But there are a lot of other things that businesses want to do. Many businesses want to do, and they can achieve by using, rich messaging. I say rich messaging because RBM isn't the only thing on the block, the only kid on the block. It is the one that we champion, obviously champion the carrier ecosystem. But the features that are there are very, very good. And someone just mentioned WebView. You mentioned WebView. WebView's kind of rolling out now, and WebView basically takes away the pain of a business having to develop an RBM agent. All of the features for RBM are there. There's more features that are coming, but a big feature is WebView. So if you've built a mobile experience for mobile web, then you can basically render that within the messaging application, both on Apple and Android phones, and you don't need to rebuild things. So it's a great stepping stone to getting your business up and running, just like sort of adopting the basic message point. If you're just going to send an OTP or just going to send a short text message, send it over RBM, because you get the value of your business being verified, so that consumer trust, and you get the brand there.
Mm-hmm. So Claudine, from a telco perspective, what would you say? What would you say to brands who are maybe using SMS today? We want to get them onto RBM. What reasons should we give them to drive them in that direction?
So from our point of view, I think, as Tim referenced, the verification is key. I noticed one of the key bullet points on the survey was a cost consideration. We see so many SMS going through the ecosystem, and there is no additional cost, certainly on our network, to send a branded message, as we call it in the UK. We call it basic message globally. And that does give a brand an ability to dip their toe in the water, have that logo experience, that verified experience, for a similar cost. They don't have to change the creative. The content is already there. So actually, surely the question to that brand would be, why wouldn't you do that? Somebody in that organisation has been out there and spent a lot of money designing a logo, thinking about all the colours, thinking about everything that goes into that. To have that added element of trust in the messaging channel, as we've talked a lot about today, deliver it where it says O2 UK have verified this. It is coming from O2 UK or Virgin Media, and delivering exactly the same message, the same experience that they would get on SMS. So from addressing that cost question that seems to come back a lot, to me that's really simple. As Tim said and Barinderpal said, the WebView experience, the majority of brands will have that available anyway. There's not a lot of extra work to do. And I think right at the beginning, certainly when I first sat up on a stage at MEF event, there was a lot of pushback from brands saying, it's quite a lot of extra work for us to do, and we have to create an additional technology piece, and it's there now. You don't have to do that anymore.
And James, you obviously from a Twillio perspective, you're involved in not just kind of moving people potentially from an SMS to RCS, but to other channels. But just sticking on the RCS conversation, what's your position? What's Twilio's position? What would you do to get somebody moved? What would you say to an enterprise brand to move them from an SMS to an RCS?
I mean, I think the fraud piece is a really good point, like the fact that it's branded, so that verification makes a huge difference. But essentially, it's again those barriers, the ones that you mentioned earlier, are still very much there, and especially when there's an incumbent technology like SMS that's so ubiquitous and well known. It's hard enough training salespeople to sell something new, training customers and enterprises and brands to register and do a whole new system. That's where the real challenge lies, and that's sort of where we're trying to streamline that process to get brands to understand. And I think the kind of work that Tim and Claudine and anyone else within this ecosystem does, where they come with us to our brands and show them the value that RCS can add, and those walkthroughs and examples, that really helps give them the confidence and, well, the key understandings necessary to switch from SMS to RCS.
So, I mean, I'm a bit confused. I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? But I'm a bit confused why we haven't already moved to that point. We haven't kind of touched on that yet. I know that coverage is probably one of the reasons, but why aren't we pushing more aggressively forward in that direction? If it's the right thing to do, if the verification's there, it's safer, it's no more expensive. Why aren't we looking at a potential migration? We talk about decommissioning 2G networks, 3G networks. Why aren't we doing the same here? Anybody answer that?
You don't want to hear my answer. That's for down the pub later. Okay. I mean, I think, to be fair, it has been a long time coming. I'm always intrigued to see things written on LinkedIn that I occasionally look at. People are sort of saying, oh, RCS, it's dead, it's never going to go anywhere. You need cross-platform messaging. We've got cross-platform messaging now. That's rolling out. We've got, I think, 7-8 markets live with it. RBM, someone mentioned EE, BT have just had theirs enabled last night, which is great, and general availability. So what have we got, Claudine, in the UK now? 48 million, something like 48 million.
We've got just a shade under 18. I'd like to point out that O2 have had iOS since last year.
Exactly. Yeah. Some carriers move a little quicker than others. We've got great. We've got great coverage now. We can compete. I say we. When I talk about we, I'm talking about the carrier ecosystem here. It's a very important thing to say. It's about carrier messaging and keeping carrier messaging and carrier services really relevant. I think there's kind of not much point looking back on why is it taking so long and all these things. It's like, what's ahead of us now? The motorway's there. It's ready to go. Let's get on it. And with all these sort of new features that are coming and further new features that will be developed through the GSMA, with the likes of Google and Apple and Samsung and many other players and carriers that are there, we're going to have a really fantastic channel. And it's just a case of getting behind it and making it happen. And then there's lots of other peripheral things which are really important to this, which are going to develop and get a lot better and more efficient, which the recipient isn't aware of, will never see it. And there's a lot of work that's happening around that. And we're seeing a lot of investment from a lot of businesses. I mean, we're all sitting here in a room today, largely talking about this product. And so the interest is there. It's just a case of getting going, I think. And we're seeing some really good examples, some huge volumes that are moving in markets where they haven't had the cross-platform issue because Android has been the predominant platform, 90+%. And so we see great volumes there. We're seeing it all happening. And I think where we are in Europe, in the Western world, where we have this two-platform ecosystem, that's all getting buttoned up now, and we're ready to go.
So what would you like next then, Tim? What would be, looking forward, what would you want to see to get that pushed forward a bit quicker? Yeah,
I mean, I think that just generally, carriers, the aggregators, those folks that are interfacing with the brands need to have an RCS-first strategy. Need to say, we should get your brand verified and onboarded, and you should be sending your traffic, through RCS as the primary channel, and a drop back to SMS. Dare I say it, a drop back to another rich channel should the richness be really, really important, but an RCS sort of first channel. And this is a really good on-ramp then for a business, as Claudine was saying. If you don't have to pay any more money just to get started, it's an easy step up. Then get going with that. And what we've got data which shows in other markets that once a business starts doing that, they quite quickly accelerate to the rich side of things. And then what that does is then that brings incremental value to the channel. So it gives a better customer experience, it gives better efficiencies and value to the brand. And I think most importantly for most people in the room here, it drives incremental revenue. And that's like really important. And we've just seen a lot of cases where once brands get going, they're sort of delighted by it. They go, this is great. Why wasn't I doing this ages ago? And that's great. Don't worry about what you weren't doing. Let's look at what you're doing now and keep that moving. So I think that's kind of our view on it. We should go. I think the other thing around it is, and there's been some talk about this today, so the cornerstone of this channel is about safer, verified messaging. And I think that's a key thing. I think every business ultimately would want to have, that in their communication strategy. When they talk to a person, one of their customers, they want their customer to know it's them. They don't want their customer to ignore the message because they think it might be spam. So this is a great way of doing that. It's great to see the Home Office, Daniel here today, and there's other organisations and government bodies that are all looking into this and support that as well. We want safer messaging for citizens. So this is a great way to get there as well.
So let's stick with that phrase for a second. It's not the first time I've heard of it, but I think it's one that resonates well. RCS first strategy. Barinderpal, I know Dotgo, and you're all about RCS. I know that you'll be fully behind that strategy. But my question to you is, from your perspective, how do we get CPaaS carriers to implement that? What could they do to implement an RCS first strategy in practical terms?
In practical terms, I think Tim highlighted a point, really, getting the aggregators, telcos forcing the aggregators or the CPaaS to really send RCS messages first. And then telco decides whether to fall back to SMS or not. I think Orange Spain tried it a couple of years ago. I think they were successful there, but it never really went anywhere since then. So there is some steps that are needed. Today we are not at an RCS first strategy like Tim highlighted. And we need to get there because there are other channels outside of RCS which are seemingly becoming the first channel of choice rather than RCS. So there is some enforcements that need to be put in place, force people's hands to really incorporate RCS, make it an RCS first strategy, and then you fall back to RCS. Telco, let somebody else take a decision rather than the CPaaS taking that decision whether I want to send SMS first or an RCS first. And some of these. And some of things that can help there is, we have this basic message, branded message. Today it is restricted to 160 characters. There's really no reason to restrict a basic message to 160. Make it even incorporate long messages as part of basic messages.
So if I can just interrupt a second, everything you're saying there makes perfect sense. So what is stopping that happening today?
Well, there's no enforcement today, right? Today, CPaaS makes a choice what they want to do. And they normally, because they've been doing it for the last N number of years, they really continue to do that. And so if an enforcement is put in place, it changes the way they do business today. It makes them really dig deep and get things in order to make it an RCS first strategy. Today, they just take the easy way out. Hey, I'm not losing anything. I'm not going to if a sales guy has to go out and make money in the business, he's making the same amount of money sending a SMS message versus a basic message. What's a sales incentive does he have? He has no sales incentive to do it. So somebody needs to take some action and force hands.
Because what will happen if we don't, right? There's somebody else is going to come in.
Yeah, somebody else
that business, right?
Is going to come in, and they are there in most markets, right? So it's not even they're not going to come in; they're there. So we need to basically go in and not let that happen in the markets where it is not there. But in a number of markets outside of Western Europe, outside of these developed markets, somebody else is already there. So you need to uproot them, and you got to force hands, make it happen. So we just keep talking about it, but we need to really act on it now.
So I'll come to you last, Claudine, because I think, but I wanted to get James's view on that as well. That RCS first strategy. What's your feelings on that?
I mean, so I agree with what Barinderpal's saying. However, it's all about ease of sale, right? Like with the salesperson is not incentivized. That's why I can't say at Twillio that we have an RCS first strategy. We have a customer first strategy. We don't have an SMS first or a voice first or email first. It's whatever the customer needs, whatever they're going to want most, whatever they're going to use the most. Now, if their use case is perfect for RCS, then it would be an RCS first strategy with that customer, that use case. But otherwise, in those cases where it's just not that simple and straightforward, and your competitor is offering them something that's easier and more straightforward, more understandable, something that they're familiar with, we're going to also go to sell that instead. And also, I mean, again, like our business model is not one single comms channel, it's multiple ones. So ideally, we prefer it where, we manage an entire platform for them where the conversation starts on a web form, gets handed off to an RCS message that translates to a phone call, and then they get this transcribed to them in an email. So they can, utilize every single comms channel where each one suits each case best, giving the customer the best experience.
And Claudine, what's stopping telcos adopting the RCS first strategy today?
What's stopping telcos adopting the RCS first strategy or enforcing our customers to use RCS first?
Both, yeah.
I'm not important enough to answer that question on behalf of a network. I think I'm going to switch it up. Look, they're all valid points. They're all really valid points, and they are things that we talk about all the time. We sit on cross-network... Watch me avoid the question, people. We sit on cross-network operator forums. Thank you, Tim. And we talk about this stuff, and we do, and we think about it. We give it a lot of thought. We, as a carrier in the UK, we don't have a direct messaging prop. We work purely through partners, whether it's Twillio or Dotgo or all the other great people in the room. I'm going to speak for myself. I'm not going to stop saying we. I don't believe we are in a position to force people's hand on what they're doing. I think that we should be doing a better job ourselves, and I've said that very openly in forums such as this. I think we need to be, there's horrible phrases out there. Let's just go with drink our own champagne a little bit better. And a lot of what we do is push the use of RCS within our own business, or RCS business messaging within our own business. We shouldn't discount the fact that since the start of this year, we've seen the exact same number of agents, unique agents, be launched or put on our platform as we saw from the whole of next year, or from 2020, say? From 2020. So there is growth. Let's not forget how long SMS has been around. And there are new use cases as well. So I'm not in any way dismissing what you're saying. You're right, to force someone's hand makes it a lot easier. To mandate something makes it a lot easier. But we have other things as a carrier to consider as well. It's not just as simple as going, right, you can only send RBM now. You've got to do that first, or we're going to put punitive measures in place. In order for us to do that, there would be a lot of consideration, from competition issues to legal issues to all sorts that I am ill qualified to talk about.
Sorry to interrupt. I think we've hit one of those moments in these panels, which for me is kind of a peak of the conversation. And I think maybe I just ask the audience at this point. You've heard the conversation here. Does anybody have any suggestions for what a good way forward could be? Because if you look at all the markers that we heard today through the data analytics, the stuff I presented from the market, it has really peaked from an SMS point of view. Other things are coming in. Meta are coming in. Meta aren't in the room today, so we can talk about that. And that doesn't matter potentially for companies like Twillio, but it does matter for others. And I do see on people's faces sat up here a sense of frustration from two people in particular. What do you think can happen? Has anybody got any good ideas? Because that's what these sessions are about. David?
Hi, it's Tim Ward from XConnect. As you were, I've got to go closer, obviously. As you were talking, I was just going through all of my SMSs to see, okay, of all of the business SMSs as opposed to the personal ones, how many of those were coming up as RCS? Unfortunate number, a big fat 0. One of them I'd actually commented back on, which was after I got back from Mobile World Congress, I got a survey from one of the network operators. You'd be very pleased to hear it wasn't yours.
I was slightly panicking, Tim.
But that survey was sent as an SMS. Now, so if you're looking for a suggestion, one thing I would say is to all of the operators out there, if you're communicating with your customers and you actually want them to use RCS, try doing it yourselves. Might be a good start, at least to set the ball rolling. Now, if you don't want to use RCS, maybe that's telling us another story. But I think you do. You do.
Not in every single use case, but we use it. We use it to counter bill shock. We use it for upgrades. We do use it. We aren't as open in sharing the stats because that is a business policy that we have, but we do use it. I'm very pleased it wasn't us that did that, by the way.
It wasn't you.
Anybody else?
No
David, did you have something to say? Bea, just here, please.
Thank you. Who has the question?
Just here in the middle, please, Susan. As far away as possible.
David Creasy-Benjamin from Vonage again. To answer your question, I think there are two things. we're brilliant at talking to each other about this. We don't talk to the public about it. I don't think we talk to enterprises at scale and do it well enough. I think the most success that Vonage has had in coming into RCS in the last year is to change that for our enterprises. When you talk about it in the right way, and when you can show somebody the ease of which they can transition. So if you're sending a basic SMS today, most of your providers are going to say, would you like to turn this on? And all you literally have to do is say yes. The technology, there's no development work involved. It is the sharing of the logo, and you can switch it on and see the benefits. And every single customer we've done that for has then, as Tim said, gone on and grown and done more things with it. One client that went live as an experiment, after, I think, 4 weeks of running, they suddenly launched 8 more countries overnight because of the benefits they see. And I think we as an industry have to be better at it.
So would Vonage do this?
Vonage do this, so I won't list off the number of events that we're attending or that we're running for our enterprises with Google's help, it has to be said. They're hosting us for a number of those. Our carrier partners are doing so as well. Every single one of those has led to at least one customer going live. Best one is that they went live in the room. They literally registered their agent, sent their first test messages and submitted their verification in the room because it was that easy. And because we were doing it in partnership with the carrier, and I took the mick out of him that it would take at least 7 days to get verified. It was verified within 10 hours as well. I think the other element, and I think this genuinely helps, and I've talked about it for a while, is RCS needs a better personality. As Barinderpal said, we're all using it. If you've got an Android phone, you've probably been using it for a long time. You've no idea. There's not a consistent approach to branding. There's not a consistent approach to the logo. The way I describe it is if you bought a mobile phone in the last 30 years, you get 2 things with it. You get the ability to make a voice call and you get the ability to send an SMS. Now you get 3 things. Everything else requires you to download an app, to sign up, to do something. So a carrier is giving that away, and you're not telling anybody you're doing it. And I think some of that comes from Google. I think Apple's approach to iMessage when they rolled that out for their consumers is one to be admired and watched. But RCS needs something. It doesn't necessarily need to be called RCS. Do we even need to change the name? I don't know. But I think there is a logo or a presence in a consumer's mind, and once that expectation is set up, the default conversation becomes, why haven't I got this?
Okay, anybody else? Nick, yeah.
Hiya. Does it not come back to how we actually engage with brands? Because if you think about it, we're going out and saying, look, you've got this really rich platform, and you're going to engage, you're just going to be chatting with consumers the whole time as a brand. But as consumers, how often do we actually engage with brands? We only really do it when we have to, and that's via, kind of customer care. But then the only other time we probably do it is if, I'm sure, looking at most people, we still go in the high street, go shopping. And if we go shopping and the store assistant comes up, can I help you? Being British, I obviously say no. So, that's kind of the mindset in terms of how we interact with brands, between brands and consumers. So surely that's a fundamental change that has to happen. And at that point, we then, as consumers, might be more open to engaging with brands, and brands might then understand why it's important for them to actually engage with us. And maybe something like that is actually holding this back.
Any thoughts?
I mean, just on a sort of, to Dave's point on DCB's point of personality, I think there's been a lot of stuff happened on that. Nothing's going to change, okay? It's going to be called RCS, that's it. Apple have adopted as, what is it? I've got an iPhone with RCS switched on. It says RCS message, I think. RCS is there. It's going to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. It should just be on as a customer. You shouldn't even need to know about it. Your mother or your father or your granny or your daughter, they don't need to know what it is. They're just going to get this great experience, and they're just going to use it. They don't have to turn it on. There's nothing they need to do. It's there. That's the goal of this. And I think we've gone a long way to make that happen. I think the reality here is all of these little things, we can discuss them and make them better and improve them, absolutely, and engage better with brands. And, at Google, you'll see a lot more of this happening over the next 12 to 24 months. There's a big plan coming into place. There'll be a lot more of Google interacting with brands and businesses, getting them on board, getting them moving. But I think the reality is it's for the carrier ecosystem to lose, full stop. it is for the carrier ecosystem to lose. Now, somebody said to me the other day, oh, it's like the carriers lost out because they don't get any P2P messaging revenue anymore. Well, actually they do, because they sell it as a bundle, so you get unlimited messaging. Yeah. And they sell it, they make some money on pay-as-you-go. So even if you don't send anything, you're paying, they don't need to supplement, it's just you're going to pay anyway. With RBM, every message, or with carrier messaging, let's just call it that, every message you lose from your network, you're losing a penny or whatever it is. And you have to find something else, some other way of getting that back. And just to sort of give some examples of it, I won't go into the total specifics, but we have seen 2 major brands move away from carrier messaging, adopt an OTT. We've seen 62 and 80% message volumes year on year from that brand. They've gone. They might come back, but that's where they've gone. Yeah. So that's lucrative money that's going out the door, and it really, really needs to happen. I think in terms of, I've seen some carriers do some really inventive things with the partnerships they have with their aggregator partners or developers, and I think they're going to work out quite well. But I think it's just a case of making it really easy for a brand to adopt this. And brands put trust in their developer partner or their aggregator a lot of the time. We need to make sure there's a lot of education happening around that. I do think that with activity and things that are going to come out of the US over the next few months, I think it's really going to spur things on in lots of markets, because they're just a great lighthouse, basically, in this ecosystem. And I think that we will see a lot come from that. But really, I think at the MEF event that you ran in Barcelona, there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, the problem is that onboarding's really hard, or the problem is that a basic message is only 160 characters, or this. It's kind of like, yeah, nothing's 100% perfect, but if you get on and do your bit well, you will succeed. And I think that's what we need to do. It's just getting it done and getting it moving.
I completely agree with all of that, and I think we could go for a lot longer. We are running out of time. Who, sorry?
Hi.
James?
Hello there, James, Mr. Connectivity, hi. Leading straight into what Tim was talking about at Barcelona, the RCS session we had in Barcelona, the absolute last comment was made by Maite Martin, and it was very, very relevant. I've run a series of workshops in conjunction with the GSMA around the world. I'm in Tunisia next week, I'm in Singapore in 2 weeks' time, I was in Senegal 2 weeks ago, I was in Dubai a month ago, etc., all over the world, and I'm talking all about SMS and RCS all the time. And a key factor we've got to understand is a huge amount of the power in enterprise messaging sits with the CPaaS players we've got here on stage, Twillio, and we've got Infobip, everyone in the room. You are the companies that have the hundreds of thousands of mainly medium and larger enterprises connected, and some of you have some excellent platforms to service the smaller market as well. The reality is that, I'm not saying anyone in this room does it, but all around the world, I see it and I hear it. The fact is, with SMS, you can, let's say, get very creative with message trashing and manipulation. And there is a great resistance from many parties, particularly the smaller CPaaS players I'm seeing, where RCS is available to actually move to RCS, because guess what? They ultimately lose those, they lose that ability. And also with mobile operators, what I hear a lot as well is with SMS, many mobile operators love having a lack of clarity. Again, I'm not saying any in the room here are this, but there are many I know firsthand who love having a lack of clarity on the messaging scenario coming into them, because between 8 and 10% of some operators' revenue comes from A to P SMS, which is incorrectly routed. And moving straight into RCS removes that revenue for the carriers. It removes the abilities for CPaaS players, whatever you want to call them, messaging providers, aggregators, to play and essentially manipulate their margin. At the end of the day, though, exactly as Tim mentioned, at the end of the day, it's all about keeping it within the messaging channel. And unfortunately, we are on a losing wicket here, because people leave the traditional messaging space and move to the OTT side of things. My last point, on the marketing side of things, again, I keep talking about this, what Germany is doing with RCS business messaging.de. We've got Mariola from Tele2 in the room. Sweden are taking a similar a similar attitude as well. All the carriers coming together, having a centralized domain, appearing together, united, is absolutely great. And as a final point, on a personal note, I actually own the global top-level domain .rcs. So if any of you want your company google.rcs as your Web3 domain name, you know who to come to.
So James, thank you for the pitch. Okay, so we have run out of time. What I think, just to conclude this, is that it was a fairly heavy session, and I think what we can do as MEF is kind of follow up on some of that through our working groups and others. One of the ideas that just came to mind was that, we are looking at this RCS first strategy, which I think we all collectively agree is the right approach and the right way to go. So what I'd like to do is solicit some kind of feedback from MEF members and practical ideas on how we can do that. It could be something like maybe we select or advise carriers, CPAS, on certain message types in certain countries on an RCS-only strategy and switch to that as a trial. These things tend to start small and then grow in many ways. So what we will do is kind of put that together through our various working groups. That was my pitch, by the way, as I'm sure you could tell. Final word from yourself, Barinderpal, before we close.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks made very great points. I think James made some great points, getting countries to support verification, common verification, common onboarding. We've seen the challenges, It takes different carriers take different approaches today, different telcos. Some people onboard them within a day, some people them within a week, some within a few weeks. So the timelines vary a lot, and these things need to be straightened out for RCS first strategy really to be put in place, because today the times vary a lot. So I think it was very good discussion, a lot of good points that came around, and I think some things that you mentioned, Nick, that we need to follow up and collate and get working on some of these items.
Indeed. Thank you, Barinderpal. James?
I can't really say I've got any closing notes in that way, but just, it's been good to be here, and thanks for the invite. It's always nice to be part of the conversation. I think it's important to include as many people as possible, otherwise we do get caught up in our own little telecom echo chamber and then wonder why nobody understands what RCS is or how to use it.
And just a further plug, we will be running some enterprise events from MEF later this year, so we'll let you know more about that. But I agree, the echo chamber needs to stop a little bit. Tim?
Well, just really, it's, as I was just saying a few minutes ago, it's ours to lose. Is it? We get on with it, we make this happen, and it'll be good. I think it will be good, but there is this, there's always that side where, I don't want to go to the beach because I might get sand between my toes. It's like, let's just get on with it and get going.
Sounds a bit like one of my kids. Claudine?
I was just sitting here thinking, actually, before I did my final thing, that there was those 5, or there has been, I don't know if they're all still here, 5 of our major aggregator partners in the room, and all of them are active now in RBM. I would like to see the same growth that we've seen in the first quarter of this year continue more and more and more. And I would just like to say that I believe in the UK, the verification process is pretty straightforward. We've done a lot of work on it. I can take no credit for that, but my colleague Sue and other networks have done a lot of work on that and continue to do that. We are always open to the feedback. Come and give us feedback to what you think. I'm sure every single one of you that works in the messaging space would like free messages. Not going to happen, but give us some feedback on what you need to see, whether that's through MEF or directly.
Back to what I was saying before, use MEF as your communication channel as well. Maybe we present that. You've got access then to literally hundreds of people in the industry.
Always happy to have that conversation.
Great, we will do that. Okay, I think we've run out of time. Thank you very much, everybody.